Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in as I'm out on remote location. I'm out here in Renton, just next door to the Seattle Seahawks facility, getting prepped to get out there to training camp tomorrow. Next day, we've got Seahawks Fan Fest on deck as well, coming down the line. So if you see me on a different mic, camera's a little bit of skewed today. Just bear with me as we got to do this remote. We got to do this a little dirty. But we do have a little bit of breaking news, as your Seattle Seahawks have extended not a player, but instead one General Manager John Schneider. Congratulations to John, who has extended all the way out into the next millennia. I kid, 2031, still a little bit out there, but awesome. And I think that this is a deal that is well earned on John's part. There will be, I think, some Seattle Seahawks fans out there who feel like John should be a little bit on a hot seat. I've tried to kind of push back against some of these folks that might feel this way and saying, I don't really feel like you're going to see the organization feel this same way about John, and that's not their outlook of it. It may be yours, and you may be wanting for that, but that's not the way I think this organization sees things. And I think that this ownership is also not one that's there just sitting there kind of, disconnected from the process. Everything's better to just keep things as is, steady as she goes, just hold the line until we can sell the team. I think in actuality, it's quite the opposite of that. I think that there's a lot of care involved with this, and I think that they want to, get these things right. I think that they want to just go steady as she goes and keep business as normal. You wouldn't have moved on from a Pete Carroll, for instance. That's a pretty heavy amount of change. And if you're going to move on from your general manager, it's worth noting, too, that there's a heavy amount of change that goes with that as well. Not just the GM, but in a lot of times, a lot of those people through the front office on downward are then moved along as well. And so you really do want to be sure, if you're going to flip all of that out, you're going to turn your organization over in that way, you really want to make sure that it's the right time to do so. And when you had just brought in Mike Macdonald, the time was not going to be right to be putting John on that hot seat. You had to make that determination a little bit more further back with the Pete, and you had to tandem those two up if that's the way that you felt the situation was at. That John was right along with Pete in having to share an equivalent amount of blame almost, and therefore, see you later. We're going to move on the whole thing. But they didn't do that there. And I thought that was a little bit of an indicator to some of those Hawk fans that were down on John, that some of the choices and some of the decisions that had come down the line over the past couple of years that had been so ripped apart by the fan base, i.e. like the Jamal Adams trade, might have been pushed a little bit less so from John's perspective, and more you get a little bit of maybe the Pete pressure coming in there, especially considering Pete was still a vice president at that point, had oversight over the top of John through that timeline. And I think ownership and their actions since letting go of Carroll and how they've approached John Schneider everything has geared and steered towards this being the truth of the situation and how their outlook of it. Doesn't mean your outlook has to be that way with it. Just means that the ownership's outlook on this towards John has been this way, and the actions that they've taken since Pete's moved on has been pretty succinct along with this extension, and that this is really the case, and this is where they do feel good about him. They do feel like this is the guy that can definitely take them to the promised land. And again, I tend to lean in the direction on this one of saying I would agree with this. I don't think that John is in a position, especially understanding that he's not ultimately had full control as a general manager, as pretty much 31 other general managers get the opportunity to have, where it's on you. You don't have anybody coming in with oversight. You don't have somebody coming in at the 11th hour saying, no, I want you to do it this way. You don't get the old maneuver like Al Davis back in the day with the Raiders, where the draft scouts and all the front office members would put together the draft board, and then he would literally walk in there on draft day and start moving names all over the place. That's not what's going to happen here. So you got your first chance a couple of years ago, really fully go at this. And it has been a success story in what John's been able to do since moving on from Pete. It's not been super long, so this is still kind of a situation that's progressing. But in hiring Mike Macdonald, you got that hire right. You got the hire right. This guy comes in as the youngest NFL head coach, which means it wasn't just an easy, simple decision on John's part to just go with an also-ran, but he did his due diligence. He hit the streets. He searched out every possible head coaching candidate that could be anything, anywhere, from your Chip Kellys to the assistant head coach on the New York Giants, Kafka. You went all that way to narrow it down to the right guy. And so you took your time to get it right, and you got it right. The youngest NFL head coach last year, in the sport, a rookie head coach at that, has never done it before, and yet goes out there and gets you 10 wins in his first season. And some of him getting those 10 wins, of course, has to do with other things that John Schneider has gotten right to put the right conditions in place for Mike Macdonald to have this kind of success. Because we backtrack further as to why this extension is happening, because you have a top 5 all-time trade return for a Russell Wilson. Is Deshaun Watson leapfrogged it? Are there maybe going to be a couple other deals that leapfrog it? Does the Dallas deal to the Vikings still beat it out? Sure. But as far as the top 5 goes, and as far as the pure haul you got back from Russell Wilson, considering he was going to go off a cliff right after you made that trade, those are kind of all-time GM moves. And he went there with that as that's a success story on itself. Now, what he does with the assets is a whole nother point of determination on this, but that was a smashing success for what you got back, especially considering not only did you get the draft haul back, you avoided all of that cap money that you were going to have to spend on Russell if you kept him to put him on a contract extension. So, bully for John there on both of those two accounts, and then how he's used the draft capital. And I think that while you go, well, we didn't get this Hall of Fame returns with players that we picked, I still think from your Boye Mafes to your Derek Halls to a couple of other guys there in between, even Devin Witherspoons, that there's plenty of picks here that have gotten right on this side of it and what they've done with those draft selections. And that while you can maybe push back against me saying that the draft returns have been a smashing success, they have been a success off how they've used those picks. That's partly how you get to the 10-win season last year in that first year of Mike Macdonald as that rookie head coach. So you've got some right decisions within there. And I think that, again, pairing back to what maybe ownership is thinking about this too, is that a part of the reason I think that John still is remaining here and Pete's not here in a lot of ways, on top of maybe some decisions that come in, like I said, in that 11th hour, is the willingness to change and adapt and correct where you're going wrong. And after somebody goes and wins a Super Bowl championship and gets to back-to-back Super Bowls, it's probably hard to change your ways a little bit. But John recognized right about the time of the Russell Wilson trade that we've got to start to move in a direction of changing how our draft approach has been. We have not been successful here. We have gone wrong. And it was a very simple little adjustment that they made, twisting away from need and moving towards value, drafting the best value on the board. Not paying attention to where your depth is at and what you need and who's the guy that can just kind of fill a hole in there, but actually going out there and grabbing the best player you have on your board. Who's the highest guy we got on our board at the moment we pick? We're taking that guy. And trusting in that process that will net out down the road a collection of a team that's going to have difference makers, that's going to have impact players across the board, because you're just looking to get the best pure players. This may seem like a straightforward, why wouldn't you just do it this way anyway? But you got to go back in time and remember, at the time of them driving towards need, some of that had to do with the fact that you did have such a deep roster. And you are looking at, well, we got the LOB and Russell's here and Marshawn's here and we got the receivers. And so we're just going to try to fill around the edges a little bit. And that's why that pulled you and steered you in that direction versus now where you are trying to return this thing back into an elite stage of things and how you want to, guide this thing and where you want to take this. So John's gotten a lot of stuff right on this. There are other things that we can look at, like simply the way, I know I'm going back in time, but the Russell Wilson decision to take him in the 3rd round and how right he was on that. But then again, even also the Geno Smith situation in recent years, because the stuff gets lost, I think, a little bit down as we move on from Geno and Sam Darnold's here, but nobody thought Geno Smith was going to work. Let's remember this in retrospect of this. Nobody from a national perspective thought this was going to work. Few within the fan base thought this was going to work with Geno Smith. This was simply bridge. This was simply a guy that you were going to have to work around his deficiencies and what you did and just hold on till you can go draft your next quarterback. And it was something quite different than that with Geno. He got that one right, and that was not an easy C. He got the Russell Wilson right. That was not an easy one for everybody to notice throughout the league in order to get it right. It's one thing if you do something that's a no-brainer and draft this guy that everybody in the league's like, yeah, we all love him. It's another thing when you take a guy that everybody's like, what are they doing? What are they just? And then you get that right. And we may see him hit the trifecta on this as Jalen Milroe is your next guy up to potentially be that guy who's had many people sell on him, including myself, who might actually be able to find himself be like one of those other prior quarterbacks who can surprise, and that John does prove, as I have a little bit of a sneaking suspicion, he's got an eye for quarterback talent. That's a position general managers are going to, like anybody, is going to have their strengths and their weaknesses towards positions that they're stronger in evaluating versus being weaker in. I tend to think with John, though, he's got a certain amount of strength when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks and determining who is the right guy that he wants to hitch his wagons to and ride with. So does give me a little bit more confidence with Milroe on that side of it, given John's past history with it. But there are plenty of stuff here that John's gone right. 3 straight winning seasons. 3 straight winning seasons. Hard to do in football. First team in NFL history that's had back-to-back winning seasons over the last 2 years and didn't make the playoffs. So you've not been bad. You didn't really miss a beat off of moving on from Carroll. You actually increased your win total by a game. You're on the right track. You have a coach that you hired that seems to be the right hire in every way, and it's not just about the returns of what the coach brought in his first year. It's also about the way the players talk about him. You guys hear how they talk about Mike? You guys hear how every man speaks over and over again about, and I know the genius tag gets thrown around a lot and too often and all that, but this guy is not just he's a defensive guy, but this is a really smart defensive coach. We got ourselves a difference maker from the coaching position and what he does with defenses. And the players talking like that, this is not something that I can remember hearing, and admittedly when we are here in Seattle, we haven't had a lot of defensive-driven minded head coaches, from your Ericksons to your Holmgrens. I know that certainly you have in Pete, a defensive-minded, driven head coach. But even in Pete's case with the players, that wasn't about necessarily the brilliance of Pete. The brilliance of Pete was the motivation, was the fostering the environment and the atmosphere to become an elite team, the setting the players free of constrictions and confinement that other teams would put them underneath. Pete had a lot of other things he brought that were the good side of that to that, but it wasn't necessarily the brilliance of the X's and O's. And that's what Mike does bring. And he is legitimate. And you hear so many players talk about that time and time again. I don't just think that they're buttering Mike up. I don't think that it's in players normally to be this many to a man or just kind of pumping up their coach just to simply, here's your Apple teacher kind of thing. Not at all from my perspective on this. But great move. I think the naysayers on this would say that there's been a few things he's gotten wrong recently to the other side of this that needs to be corrected and fixed and should have been taken into account. How you've spent money in free agency, your approach to the offensive line. You've got 3 of those trades that are probably some of the worst trades in Seahawks history when you account down from Jamal Adams to Jimmy Graham and, of course, Percy Harvin. Now, those trades had some varying levels of success too. They weren't completely just nothing burgers, but people will maybe point to those items. And on these items, I think that they are fair. But to me, they're not enough of a critique to override handing him this extension, as this one was a well-earned one. And as well, the stuff that he's getting right pretty recently. And I don't think there's any reason that they can't fix and correct some of how they spend their money into the future, especially considering that they have put themselves in a very healthy cap situation for the next 3 years. That their commitment on the books is not over the top. They don't have bad money on the books. They don't have who's this next guy we got to get released out of here. Instead, everything seems to be free and clear at the moment as it stands. And so on top of all the other good things that he's done, he's also created a really nice salary cap situation for the Seattle Seahawks team so that when or if they do rise up to become that elite team now here in the next year, you've got the money on hand to take that thing over the top. You got the money on hand to turn this thing truly into an elite status of a team and roll for those Super Bowls. Try to go for that, not simply just winning your division. I'd love to hear what you guys got to say on this matter, though. Let's have a little bit of a discussion today. I'm going to be going to training camp tomorrow and the next day, Thursday, Friday. I'll also be out there at Fan Fest. So if you are out at training camp tomorrow, if you're looking down on the field from the berm, I'm going to be over on kind of the left-hand side, about middle of the way up on the berm. You can find me over there. Come say hi. I'd love to just meet up with a couple people if you guys happen to be out there and say what's up. And I'm really looking forward to it. So as well, we'll be doing the Fan Fest. We've got a crossover event before the Fan Fest, a couple of hours before the Fan Fest, over at the brewery there. I posted on the community post today. And of course, now I can't freaking remember spacing on the name. So let me bring up the name. But we've got a remote event we're going to be doing as part of the crossover coming up. And so really, really stoked about that. It's going to be we're going to be at the Fast Fashion Brewery. It's just down the road, just barely down the road there from the stadium. I think you got a Mariners game going on that day. You got the Seahawks scrimmage a couple hours later. So whether you're coming out of the Mariners game or going in, come down to us. It's going to be like literally about a block away as far as a walk goes. But we got a lot of folks. We're going to be doing Dan Viennes and Mookie, and we've got Bryce Coots coming in there. So really looking forward to that. It's going to be a really fun crossover, and hope you guys have a chance to check that out. Can for me today, hit that like button. We will be I'll be getting you guys some doing some remote stuff for you guys as far as upload goes on practice tomorrow, giving you guys some of my thoughts on that. We'll get a live stream going as well here in the next day or two, just to give you guys some of my overall thoughts with that as well. So we'll keep this kind of going through. We'll be a little bit short today, as just we're just going to be kind of rolling through a little bit this evening on it. We had this breaking news I wanted to cover, but we got a lot stacked up here over the next couple days on that. Space, it's good to see you in the house. Jeff Logan, how you doing? Prime, what's up? What's up? Bronze Sausage, go Hawks. R. Sanchez, thank you for celebrating 33 months as a Hawks Nest member. Says, I would have liked to see John take a 1-year prove-it deal like he makes all the players. Indeed, John has definitely led heavily into in recent years the 1-year prove-it deals, and that he is very leaned in those kind of directions, trying to get that best player to be at his best, working his hardest to know that he can't just say the money's in the bank. Let me put my hands behind my head and relax. John presses a little bit more on that, and he's not getting that. But I think that there's a lot of smartness too on this Sanchez towards making sure that you have your general manager locked in. And there's a lot of upshots to this that sort of carry forward, but before versus having him in a lame duck status. I think first off, this signals to agents and future contract extensions and negotiations that if you're going to try to play any sort of negotiation, play any games with your player or try to hold off and wait until maybe you think you're going to get a new GM in here, that's not going to happen. So you got to make your peace with it and deal with John and deal with John right. He's one of the longest tenured general managers in this sport. I think that's another benefit, as he has so many connections throughout this sport, whether it is to facilitate trades or signings or to get background information on players. I mean, hell, just down the road there in Vegas, down south, a couple hundred miles, you got in Carroll, that kind of, I think, resource with those guys, I think in certain ways will kind of work together on certain things. So there's some upshots here to having that guy with the multi-year deal. I think as well, he's got the opportunity. I've always wondered if general managers do some of this, Sanchez, where you go to a general manager and you're trying to make a deal and you go, look, I don't have the assets to give you what you should get in this. This is kind of coming up just a little bit short, but I'll make good on this. So do this solid for me now, and we'll come back around in the draft, and I'll work a way to we'll work a trade to kind of get you back up in the draft on this, and I'll do you the solid down the line. I think that when that general manager is going to be there till 2031, maybe you're open to, swinging that kind of deal. I don't know if those things happen for sure, by the way, but I have just kind of wondered on that. Because not all deals align up in perfect succinctness as far as everybody feeling like they're getting the best plus out of it. Sometimes teams are held over a barrel and a player's kind of screwed them, and so they're having to move them, and man, they're getting whacked. A GM can kind of come in there and go, look, let's make this right, I think, a little bit down the road. And having that guy there, I think, allows that there too on that Sanchez. So the strength and continuity, keeping all the people in house, and knowing league wide that this thing's going to maintain in the future. I think there's a certain upshot to that, and I think you're partially joking on your message there, but good deal for John. Good deal for John. I understand Jodi taking these steps as well. Brian says, Brandon, I wish you could get down there, but family calls. Next year at the Combine, brother. Let's get it, man. We'll get it figured out. And every year I'm going to look to try to expand this out if I can down here a little bit more, bit by bit. Brian Meyer says, so many video commentators rag on JS. I knew he would be here until at least the team sells. Yeah, I'd have the same suspicions, Brian. And he does get kind of battered around a bit, and I understand people are frustrated with the Hawk team not having done a lot here since pretty much like 2017. But there's been a multitude of reasons for that. And part of it was how you had the prior setup there and the pecking order and how it was kind of put together. But I'm glad to see it. I think you are too, Brian. Broncos watch hours. I can't wait to see some of y'all's rookies play. Well, thank you, man. You guys got some fun ones too as well. That running back, Peyton was like in love with that guy. I definitely I liked him, but I just want to see so maybe he was seeing something a little bit more special I didn't quite catch on tape from my angle. But we got some exciting guys. Emma Wari and Jalen Milrow and Rojo. Not to mention Zabel. It's going to be a fun preseason. Sometimes preseason's lame and you're just like, let's just get through this. But I think we're all going to be very connected into the preseason this year. Dogs LSU's you're in Renton. Nice. You need to go for a taste at Rita's Rich Nest. Rita's Rich Nest. All right. Well, let me write it down. So I do need to get some food tonight. I probably shouldn't eat more Dinos. Right. Bar food probably wouldn't be the best for me tonight again. It's a recommendation, Dogzilla. See if I can go check that out. BP says, our coach better, cap space better, clubhouse no drama. We will be in good hands. Well said, BP. Very well said. I can't add more. I agree all the way down the line. HAG, I'm not high on it like you guys are. He still hasn't shown to invest in the O-line until this last draft, and only had to because we needed it that badly. There'll be some people still that are probably HHG that are, in that place. And I think it's definitely fair criticism to say that you have gone way too light on the offensive line. And it has allowed for a complete disassembly at times of your team through certain seasons because you didn't have that line in the right place. I do think it is where we go to, do you make adjustments with time? Do you correct your mistakes? And just from my perspective with an HHG, a top 10 pick on Abraham Lucas, third round pick to top 10 pick to Charles Cross, third round pick to Abraham Lucas, third round pick to Christian Haynes, first round pick to Gray Zabel. Definitely, again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I would like to have gone even more than that. But I think if you do look at that sort of 3-year period of that many linemen drafted that high, and then you take like the 5-year period from 2015 to 2020, I think you've put way more draft capital in. So it's kind of like, is he maybe starting to kind of learn his lesson on that? And that eventually is really what I want to see. So the same thing I always said with Carroll too is I don't want to see Carroll move on. I want to see Carroll fix this one little latent thing in his game. And if he can correct it, then this is a guy that can still coach in this league and still find success. It's just that the one thing that's kind of the limitation is a heavy limitation holding him back. But I get what you're going through, and you won't be the only one on that HHG. I think there'll be a few people that find themselves in that kind of realm of things with this. Jeff says drafts could have been better sometimes, but that's between GM and head coach and owner, so it's hard to pin it down solely on John. Amen. Especially with that dynamic with Pete, understanding, Jeff, that Pete had the oversay over John. In most general manager situations, that's not the way it works. The GM gets the final say. You will get the players I give you, and you will like it. I agree with you, though, HHG. He could have definitely gone harder with more linemen in the draft. He could have done more, and I think to your point on this, considering how much he had kind of had to build it from start to finish at that point 3 years ago, the requirement was there for you to do more. You're not starting from like you've got a nice foundation and build on the foundation. You let it literally rebuild the foundation of the offensive line itself. I get it totally. Broncos watch hours says I haven't seen Megan in a while. Does she come here often? She's usually a little bit more on my Twitch channel side of it. She got a job about a year and a half ago, so I think that's been keeping her really busy. But she pops in here and there. King Bomber says, I don't hate the John Schneider extension. I've been one of the biggest supporters of JS in the past few years, but this feels early. Could be. Could be. Kind of wondered a little bit, King Bomber, on this when I was thinking about it today, because there wasn't necessarily him heading into a lame duck season. He had a couple years left on his deal. But I wonder partly on this if, oh, and again, this stuff's just me thinking. I'm like inventing in my own head of like the scenarios of what may be, happening in the background of it to try to explain stuff. So this is completely just an outlandish sort of theory, King. But that John maybe has some big deal or big deals on deck he wants to make. And he's like going ownership and he's like, look, if you guys want to press to try to be really good this year, we can make these deals. But at the same point in time, I can just be conservatively sit back in this and hold, and we don't have to do it, especially if I've got like a job on the line and I don't want to do something super aggressive right now. That maybe this may not make sense in the way I'm saying it, but I just think maybe there's something like that too that's pressed this because of the timing of it, King. Back to your point on, when it goes down. We'll see. Ryan White, you staying in Renton? I am. I am in Renton. How you doing, Daniel Barry? It's good to see you in the house. Chris is glad they brought Thor back in. Wanted to see what his potential could be. Thor's fun, man. He's got a hell of a name too. He's a big boy, Chris. We'll see what he can bring to the table. Dogzilla, correction, Brando is welcome to stay here and borrow a black on black convertible vet, but it's 30 miles north of here. I worked for years in Renton area at Boeing before traffic hit. Ooh, I'd love to roll me a little vet, man. That's worth doing a 30-mile trip. I got a weird ass car. These rental cars now, we're gonna have to start to, like, you have to eventually now take a effing degree to operate these rental cars. You guys ever gotten in a rental car now and you're just looking at buttons and knobs and stuff here on, there's like 3 layers on the steering wheel of this pulls, this pushes, this, but you can't find the freaking volume button anywhere. Like all the buttons in the world and you can't find the volume. They're adding too much stuff to cars at this point. Can we just ease back? Does it need all of this stuff? Looks like the shuttle that took us to the moon on the display pad in front of me. I mean, I'm just like, am I taking flight here or am I just driving down the road? Do I got to check with the control tower before I start this thing up? Superior Records, you guys going to get any games this year? I'm not going to have a chance myself, but I'll eventually get back up there. Sanchez, it's not letting me buy super chats. It's kind of letting me a few people go through. It might be a little weird right now too, King, because I'm doing it on this hotel internet thing. I don't know if that maybe makes it a little bit wonky, but a few people are getting it through here. Peter Go Hawks. Ooh, Addison, I see you got a dono too there, so bear with me, Addison. I didn't miss it. I'll get right back on yours too. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $5 donation. If, quote unquote, we win the Super Bowl, how do you think that would affect our draft picks next year? Well, Peter, you're going to have to expand a little bit down in the chat if you can, and I'll look for your message down in the chat, so you don't have to put a donation on it. And I'll try to answer the question as it is, but it is a little confusing the way that you phrased that. So I guess you could be asking that on how does it affect our draft picks that we're going to go after and attack next year. If that's the way you meant the question, then that certainly is that you've got a stacked team, and that's going to be as much of a challenge back to the drafting to value versus drafting for need from John Schneider's perspective of things. If that's the route you're going to go with it, but that's a good problem to have, of course, too. You're obviously picking 32nd. You're at the back of the drafts at that point, so you're not looking at the prime players in the draft, but you have all of your selections. Yeah, I'm not quite sure on your question on what you meant with that. If you can expand just a little bit, if we win the Super Bowl, how do you think that would affect our draft picks next year? I think you're definitely at that point when the Super Bowl, and maybe if it's as well as what players we're targeting is what you mean in the question of that. And I would say you're probably going to be looking at continuing to beef up the offensive line. Running back probably starts to jump a little bit more forward as a potential of being picked high at that point. Wide receiver is definitely going to be on your list, I would say. And now some of that's dependent upon, hey, if Torrey Horton develops and Cooper Kupp gets a healthy year out, are you driven as much on that? Maybe not. Cornerback is going to be one of those spots we attack. Whereas I think that there's some other positions that you're probably going to be more, inside linebacker, defensive line, your tackles, probably your tight ends. You're probably not touching those ones, Peter, especially on the back of a Super Bowl kind of season. But let me know if I misunderstood the question. I was trying to answer a couple different ways, I think, but I wasn't quite sure on that one. Addison Shelble, it's great to see you in the house. Thank you for the $10 donation. That's very, very kind of you. What's up, Brandon? I hope all is well. I haven't caught one of your streams in a while. I'm slightly concerned about this extension because of our interior offensive line issues as of late. Well, thank you, Addison, for the 10, and really, really appreciate it. Glad you're able to get back in and catch in. I know sometimes life happens, stuff fast, things going left and right, so not everybody's got all the time to bounce in and out. I appreciate you catching it when you can. And the interior offensive line issue is, as HHE spoke about above, I think a very fair one and a fair critique of John Schneider. I think that if you are looking at the Achilles heel for him right now, that's the one that's on the back of his leg. That's the Achilles. The offensive line is the Achilles heel. And I'm hoping he's going to correct himself on this. I come back to going, is my general manager stuck in something that is inherently broken inside of him that doesn't allow him to do the thing that can correct the situation? Or is he starting to take steps to resolve it? And I guess this would be a little bit like an alcoholic to me, that is the guy getting up in the morning and shotgunning down the Jack Daniels? Or have you gotten him to a point where he's having a beer a night? And so in John's case, I guess when it comes to the O-line thing, I think that rather than it being in a place of he's shotgunning whiskey as he gets up in the morning, which is where the offensive line's been at times in your disbursement of resources and how to get it good, now you're at least just kind of the beer a night thing. And so maybe the path to sobriety is here right around the corner. And I'm hopeful of that, but maybe my hope is a little bit misplaced on this. But again, coming back, you have drafted these guys in recent years higher than you had in the prior 5 years for the most part. And then you've also gone out there and actually gotten the legitimate coaches. You're not bringing in offensive coordinators that are first-time offensive coordinators paired with very young, very green offensive line coaches. And that's another spot of where you have corrected it. But criticism's fair there. I would say that too. Thank you, though, Addison. I think your concern on that's going to be a pretty succinct one with most of the fans that might have a little bit of an issue with this to a big issue with it. Chris says it's a week away, but why is there freaking rain predicted for the game? It's August, for crying out loud. Planning on going regardless, but come on! You never know with those kind of weather predictions that far out, Chris. I think it's there. We've seen with modern day weather predictions, it still seems to be just about as touch as go as it ever was. Prime says Nem pointed out more former John Schneider employees are in NFL front offices than Carroll acolytes coaching assisting. Time will tell us more. Wow, great point there, Prime. I was not aware of that, but that would seem to track as you think about all the guys in different front offices, like Carolina out there. It's got a couple guys. So, that's cool. Very true. We might one day be, Prime, talking about they talk about the coaching tree of great coaches and all then the great coaches beneath them. We might be someday talking about that with John. Sanchez says Broncos made the playoffs last year after being on the wrong side of the trade. We didn't. They did. They've done a good job getting themselves off the floor. Getting themselves back on the feet. Prime says again, I don't think John is infallible. I can't say that word, Prime. I don't have the lip. Infallible. There we go. But his hit rate and frugal nature are often est on. Yeah, I mean that's certainly with the 1-year deals and not going multi-year deals. That's another spot that's certainly another fair criticism I think of John. I think that he has proven a little bit right on some of these multi-year deals on how dicey they can be when you go out in the open market, for instance, and try to grab guys like we did with Draymond Jones, making him the highest paid free agent in Seahawks history. And you just didn't really get the value back out of that. The same point in time, Javon Hargrave signs a very equivalent contract with the San Francisco 49ers. Same thing. Two smart organizations targeting these two exact kind of players, and they both still kind of get it wrong. But it's a fair criticism overall with it, where the 1-year deals have, by and large, proliferated a lot of his off seasons. But again, this offseason, multi-year deal to Cooper Kupp, multi-year deal to Sam Darnold, multi-year deal to DeMarcus Lawrence. So maybe we got a little bit of correcting ways here. Nitro Hawk, I think we should start considering giving Mike McDonald's baby a contract so he can grow up and take over when McDonald retires. That'd be awesome. That'd be such a cool story. Hey, maybe. He's got a lot of time, as young as Mike is, BC slamming gears and burning Z-rated rubber like you boosted it. I would, Prime. Got to open that sucker up. Dogzilla says Rita may not have her listed. Rich Nest. I'll have to locate it out. I'll have to do a little searching. Pattern recognition expert says, laugh my ass off. We're doomed to mediocrity until 2031. I hope not. I don't think he'll last to 2031 if you maintain. He can be under contract, but if you're 2026, 2027, you're not getting to playoffs. Or, I don't think that he's just going to have that no success, you'll last forever thing going on. Nick Guzman says John is a hell of a lot better than 75% of the GMs in the NFL. Is he the best? At this point, no. However, sometimes this fan base has a skewed perception of reality in the NFL. I think it's a very fair point, Nick, and I think sometimes there is a thought process of, the flashy new toy is the better toy. I think a little bit of this is going to go on with the Jalen Milroe situation to a degree. And I can understand the general pull by the nature to go do that. But as you say, and I do agree with it, John is better undoubtedly than 75% of the general managers in the league, and where he falls in alignment as far as at the top goes. I mean, that's where we can have some discussion. But are you going to go find a general manager that's going to be better than John on that open market and that's out there? Maybe, but there's not one that I can say if we were going to let him go that was somebody that jumps out to me as one that then you go get this guy now. That's the move to definitely go make. And so, yeah, I think guys just get into a spot for a certain amount of time, and people start to look for those. Let's get something new. We got to do something new with it. But I think you only look for new if you know that what you have isn't working. And I don't know that we can look at what we have right now with our general manager and say it's not working. We'd like better results. We'd like to see the process faster to getting to an elite stage of things, but they are moving and motoring into that direction. Chris says JS may not be everyone's favorite, but it's not like we're the Jets, Carolina, Cleveland, the Giants, the Titans. Hey, I'll even throw on top of that, Chris. How about the Dolphins? The Colts. Herbert says O-line coaches all hired by John. If these are the wrong picks, to me, that's all on John's shoulders. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. Again, that it is that context matters, right? And so when it comes to the hiring of the offensive line coaches before, when you had with Waldron and you brought him in here, I don't think you had a wide pick of coaches that were willing to come into the situation with Coach Carroll. That's what was being reported at the time, and I think that it lines up with the fact that you brought a guy in Waldron who had never been an offensive coordinator before. And so does that then reflect upon John? This is that bit of math, I think, herbicide that the front office is doing on these type of things is rather than it's a painting the broad brush of it's just all on John with that stuff, it's also that there's Pete on that process there too. And our coach is not coming there because they don't want to deal with a bit of the Russell Wilson factor. Our coach is coming there because they don't want to deal with a Coach Carroll who they know is going to put his fingers in the pie of the offense from time to time to dictate what they do, i.e. like don't throw in the middle of the football field. These are the things that reduce down your capability to get the best candidate that particular year for Waldron. And then when it came to Grubb, because you wanted to get the head coaching job, what's better to get? You want to get the head coaching job right or get the OC job right? And you go, well, I want to get the head coach right, and then get so they had to wait on McDonald because of the Ravens having a very long playoff run, which meant that you had to wait to then hire McDonald late, which meant then that there wasn't a lot of great OC candidates out there that they could go and get. They wanted to get Arthur Smith in here. Which would have probably been a good fit in the system in the stadium with Mike McDonald. But he didn't want to wait for McDonald. He wanted to get a job and make sure he had something locked in. So, in general terms, yes, 100% you're right in that it's on him with the hiring of the coaches, but then also context matters. And and especially when it comes to the Waldron hire and the bringing that one in with what the factors that were at play there, I think there were some extra things that made that a little bit tougher from John's perspective to pull off. Dogzilla, thank you for the $10 donation. It says, for a taste of Rita late tonight. Let's go. Thank you for that, man. Get me hungry over here, Dogzilla. Appreciate you, man. And thank you for being a long-time member of the channel. I know you also hooked me up with that back piece as well, bro, on my setup in the back home. I really thank you for that. Really kind of you. But appreciate you. Very kind of for you for the $10 donation, man. You guys are kind as ever. Addison says, somewhat unrelated, but what do you think about the people who argue that Pete should have never been fired simply because he was our best coach in franchise history? I think we again come down to where when things get simplified down the line, and I'm very consistent on this, I think, in that when I feel fans start to take things down to a very simplistic state on items when it deals with the football team, that's where I tend to try to push back a little bit because I think that there's so much more that goes into it than just one simple, here's the bad guy, put it all on him like a Scooby-Doo episode, you're ripping the mask off and it's him. I think that there tends to be a lot of complication involved with this type of stuff. So when you go simply, well, he won us Super Bowls, he writes his own ticket, I think that that's a poor way to run a franchise, a very poor way to run a franchise. I think in the NFL, because it moves so fast and because you can have the game pass you by overnight, you need to kind of constantly be proving yourself. And frankly, like this isn't just the coaches, players have to do this. Why is it okay for a player to have a 3-year career life and every year he's got to prove it. And every year they're bringing somebody in to challenge his job, but yet somehow your coach can never be challenged because he's had some success. You wouldn't do that with your former players. You were part of a Super Bowl winning team 7 years ago. We're going to keep you forever till the end of your career. Well, no, you're not going to do that. It's not smart to do that. And so likewise, it's not smart to keep a coach just simply because he's had past success. You keep a coach because he's the right coach for the here and now and for the future. That's the assessment of it. Past success can certainly be taken into account with that. But I think as well, you can kind of trick yourself with past success because of how fast the game moves. You come back to face the fact that the game's passed the guy by. He's had the past success. He's not going to fix it in the future. Now you're really stuck. And with Carroll, there was the very specific thing with him where he got stuck on. And that's where I say back to it. It's like I never will say he's a bad coach. I'll never say that there aren't some things in his bag still as a coach right now that are still very good and useful and can work in the NFL and can build a successful program. I believe it. But when it comes to the way he ran his offense and his defense, there was a lot of handrails put in, guardrails put in on both offense and the defense. And those things did not free up both sides of the ball to be at their best. And you can't be just so simplified on both sides of the ball and expect you're going to win in this day and age anymore. The game has gotten a little bit more complicated and in depth. And so I think and hope, I think Coach Carroll has shown this a little bit, Addison, in that the hires that he has made in there with Graham as a DC and Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator, I don't think that those are hires that he would have made 4 or 5 years ago in Seattle. I think that does maybe speak and show that Carroll's showing off a little bit of growth on his side of it. And that's encouraging and should bring a lot of people hope for him with the Raiders program. But I don't think that he was willing to make those same moves here. And that's why he was let go. That's what it came down to. I mean, he still wanted to, folks, keep Jamal Adams here last year. That was one of the inherent arguments between them and ownership. Like, we need you to let him go. We need to let Hurt go. That's not the right coach. So he was still just from the personnel matters to the scheme. There was just some stuff that wasn't in alignment or right from his outlook on it. It just wasn't. But I don't think you can just let a coach stay forever just because he's had success at one time. I think that's the pathway to an organization that's going to lose for a lot of years because they're caught up in sentimentality. And I just don't think that does you any real favors in the long term. I don't think you're really honoring the coach either by just giving him a blank ticket to ride it out in Loserville or middle of the roadville. For the good, happy, warm vibes it might bring, But that might be just me too. Chris says, I'd rather be close than constantly in the toilet. There's hope at least going into a season versus expected trash. Amen, Chris. Amen. Prime says, I'm not saying the man is messianic, but just name a better general manager than we've had. I'm in the same place. I know it sounds like I'm being a very big proponent of John, right in alignment with you there, Prime. But it's not as much as I'm saying that he walks on water or this guy is the best general manager ever, but it's just the understanding of how good he is and the big decisions that he's gotten right in recent years, the growth that he has shown off in his general manager game over the recent seasons in correcting what had become issues into the 2010s. And that's enough for me to be willing to ride with it in the future and have that hope too. Addison says, personally, I'd contend that by the same logic, wouldn't you also have to argue that we should have kept Russ because he was our best quarterback in franchise history? Bingo. You're touching on exactly what I was saying about why this doesn't apply to the players or doesn't apply to the players. And it's boom, 100%. I mean, that right there, I think, shows the logical consistency there, Addison, informs one to the other. You wouldn't do it for a coach. You wouldn't do it for a player, so you're not going to do it for a coach. You don't got a separate rule book between the two of them. I know they do two different things on the field, but it just doesn't make sense to apply a separate rule book of evaluation from one to the other. That recognition expert says Pete and John should have been fired after the Super Bowl. Woo! Coming in hot. Coming in hot. Megan in house. Let's go, Megan. Says TheSeahawksNest. Love this news. Can't wait to see what happens. Good to see you. See, I told you Megan around here. Somebody's asking about you earlier in the chat, Megan. Pattern says year after year, the same crap, and nobody in Seattle cares. Oh, we definitely care. I think we just disagree a little bit about, I don't think a 10-win season last year with the first coach, youngest NFL coach, first-time NFL coach in the NFL. I mentioning crap, I don't understand how 10 wins is crap. 3 straight winning seasons isn't crap. The first team in NFL history to have back-to-back winning seasons but not make the playoffs. That's not crap. Crap is a 4-win year. Crap is a 5-win year. Crap is that kind of season year after year after year. Pattern says there's teams where fans would have wanted the general manager's head on a platter 3 seasons ago, but we keep him. Yeah, but you're speaking to a situation where in every other city, pattern recognition expert, every other city that exists out there, you have a general manager who gets to have the full control. So when there are things that go not in a good fashion, when things twist and turn in the wrong ways, you can succinctly say he is without a doubt the bad guy. He's the guy that caused this to happen, full stop. But when you have a unique situation, unlike anywhere else in the NFL, where you have a head coach who has more power than the general manager, it's not as simplistic. Again, we come back to when we try to drive towards simplicity. And we go just staying in simplicity. This is the NFL. There's layers upon layers upon layers as to why things happen. And if you're drawing the simplicity here, but you're comparing two disparate parts, you're comparing one thing to one situation where a general manager's got full control, and then this other situation where the guy doesn't have that full control, where the coach can come in at any hour and say, I want you to do this. And he can't just come out to the media and go, oh, I had my hands tied. The coach made me do this. He's got to just sit there quiet and take it. And so it's a bit harder to me to just go into that fashion of saying this would be just this way if it was right over here. Well, there is no other place that it was like this setup, and there's no other place that's had a tandem of a general manager and head coach with a Super Bowl win and back-to-back Super Bowls. And that was a unique condition to Seattle as well, and again, why going simplistic or just trying to take, well, we'll just apply this hard rule to every situation on here and here and here and here is hard to do, I think, in the NFL because everywhere is unique. Everywhere there's a different explanation for why the situation played out and how it played out. Dogzilla, how much of John Schneider's contracts is guaranteed, and could we trade him for a center? You could trade a general manager. I don't think any NFL team ever has done that. And yes, Dogzilla, coaches' contracts and general managers' contracts are indeed guaranteed. If you release them out, you still pay them out. Again, Pattern, some of the things that you're speaking on don't have a lot of adding up to the true reality of things. So you say they care more about profit than wins. Well, if that's the case, then why is it over the past 3 years, not 10 years, not 15 years, the past 3 years, the Seattle Seahawks have paid more out, top 10 in the NFL. They are top 10 in the NFL in actual money paid out in contracts. Not funny money on the books, not money you got listed, not money listed that'll eventually go away, but actual money that they spent out over the last 3 years, top 10 in the NFL. That doesn't align up to what you're trying to propose when you say that they care about more profit than wins. If they did, they would be bottom third in money spent. Peter says, I was meaning, will we reach for O-line right guard or just best available? Because this year we really had our picks handed to us, in my opinion. Really, it's just with John extended and us so young, he could move up 2 times. I think you mentioned something that I would expect. I think you're touched. That's a great point there, Peter. Because I do think that one thing that will carry over from what happened during the age of the LOB era is that John will target, and that he will move picks up going, look, I don't need as many guys in here. I can kind of package a pick to move on up. It's a little bit of like what you did with Amawari this year when you moved a 3rd round pick to move up into the 2nd round, or when you went with Tyler Lockett, 2nd and 3rd round pick to go up and get him, or Jaron Reed, who you moved up in the 2nd round to go get him. So I think that I can speak pretty confidently that if you go out and this roster is as deep as we think it's going to be, and you're returning all the defensive starters, and you don't really lose a lot this offseason, and so you've got everything's kind of filled out. There's a couple places that you can kind of get topped off. I think that they would be willing to kind of package picks to go get a specific player. And I don't think that would happen in the 1st round, Peter. I do think that that's more of a 2nd round city that John tends to live in when he wants to move up in that way. But you touch on a really good point with that, and that would be something I think you would see. Now, as to whether or not he would reach at that point and kind of fall back into the same bad habits that you fell into through the kind of middle to end of the Legion of Boom period, we're just going to have to see on that. I think that you have driven very heavily over the past 3 years in studying the drafts. You've driven very heavily in the direction of being willing to go to value. You know, you take Nick Amawari this year, you've got your 2 starting safeties. There's not really a pathway to him to start this year. But because you're living in value and that's how you're picking, you go, we don't care. Jalen Milroe, you got Sam Darnold here. Drew Lock, not necessarily a Riley Mills. You took him in the 4th round. You are stacked up beyond belief with 3 techs right now. Don't care. We like this player. He's the best value. That's who we're taking. So I go year by year, and they've stayed so hardly in the value section of things, Peter, especially early on in the draft. I think they're going to continue to stay there, especially understanding the returns they've gotten recently by adjusting this draft approach. Peter says, sorry, I was a few minutes late behind. No worries, man. Thanks for expanding in the chat on that so I could get a little clarity there. Joe Z says, Pete had the final say. Correct. Yes. Pete had the final say. That was the way that they set the situation up, because you weren't going to get Pete from USC, and as bright as his star was at that time, any NFL team that was going to pull Pete into their program had to give Pete personnel control. That was going to be his requirement. So you had to do it to bring in Pete. It was successful. For a time it worked. It worked until it didn't, you know. But it's also the reason that you have 31 NFL teams that don't run it this way is because having a head coach as your general manager is typically not particularly smart organizationally to run it that way. And look, Paul Allen knew this when he brought in Pete, because he had made this same mistake with Mike Holmgren. But I think Paul Allen, if he was alive, would say in both cases, yeah, there's a downside to it eventually, but it was still worthwhile to bring those great coaching talents to our city. It was still worth it to do that exception for those kind of guys. But by and large, do you want to live there? Do you want to operate in that way? No, you don't. You know. Megan, welcome back in as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowl member. Been at it for a long time on that side, Megan. And she's also dropping a big old $20 donation on me. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you, Megan, for that. And I hope you're having a great night. She says, woke up to alarms blazing with the news. Loving it. And can't wait to see what this means for future drafts and the future of our beloved Hawks. Let's go. Let's go, Megan. I love to see that you're stoked by this. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to me on this as to why you're doing it. I think you're seeing it for the same reasons with it. And good timing on this. Got to bring some good vibes on into the building. Everybody gets to feel in that building, from fellow assistant general managers on down to secretaries, on down to equipment personnel. Get to feel a little bit more steady today. They get to take a little bit of a deeper breath, understanding that they're a little more locked in what they do, and that there's not a kind of a ominous cloud in the future, so to speak, for them. So cool to see for their standpoint to it, and congratulations to John. Now go win this damn Super Bowl. Nick says trading up for Penix is what that bum grub wanted to do. Yeah, that would not have worked with our offensive line. Oh, that would have been brutal. Pattern recognition expert, Penix will put up better numbers than Darnold, and the Falcons will have more wins and go farther. I'll bet anyone 1/16th of a Bitcoin. Ooh, pattern putting his money where his mouth is. I can respect that. I can totally respect that. King Bomber says John Schneider has shown an ability to adapt, which a lack has been the reasons for several general managers to get fired. Agree 100%. Agree 100%. You can go to specific items where there's been an adjustment, and some people would want faster adjustments at times with some of the stuff, but the adjustments are there. King says Santa right here. Seattle will win a Super Bowl under Schneider and McDonald if Jalen Milroe is the guy, or we get another franchise quarterback. Definitely, that'll be a big key here. I think is getting the quarterback position solidified to making this happen. And solidified can be a lot of things. Finding star power, finding a guy that can carry it through a little bit, and be more of a, I'm not going to go game manager, be a little bit above that. Nick says, hot take, give me Drake May over all the second and third year quarterbacks. Ooh, even Jaden Daniels, huh? I like Drake May. I had a blue chip grade on him, so I think he's going to ascend, and both him and Jaden Daniels will be the big two problem quarterbacks of this draft. I think Nix will be fine. I don't know if Nix is going to go to I think Nix is a guy that gave you instantaneous returns due to some of where he was at age-wise, and he's going to be kind of what he is, I think, from last year moving forward to a degree. But I could see that, man. I love it. Hurts. No, Drake May's in there. Can herbicide? I think you're thinking, like Brian said, Levis is maybe who you're thinking. Yeah, Jordan, I'm not sure Cam Ward's going to fare too well in that environment either. Titans are just a scrambling organization that's one of those lack of foresight, lack of vision. We just sort of react year by year in what we do. And you can just feel it in almost every move they make. John Robinson says, you watching training camp in Seattle hotel room right now? No. I'm next door to it. I'm going tomorrow, John. I'll be going out there tomorrow and the next day, and then Fan Fest. Catalyst, I guess Pollard and Spears is a fine running back too. Yeah, they're all right. Spears doesn't have any ligaments left in one of his knees, but Dogzilla, any idea how much the Hawks pay for coaches and scouts and everything relative to other teams? I don't have any of that information I've ever seen reported, Dogzilla. It would be interesting to find out. That's the one place as an organization you can get a real inroad where advantage because there's no coaching salary cap. So just go get the best and brightest talent, that you can. Riverside Ward to toe tap Lockett. I can hear it now. Hell yeah. Lockett's going to get some run out there. They lost their receiver. Remember that kid they took in the first round out of Arkansas a couple of years ago? He went down again. So Lockett's on point to actually get some decent reps. John says, what the hell happened with the Christian Wilkins kissing incident? Let's go get him for a nose tackle. He seems to be a very colorful human being. Very, very, he seems to be, he's got a lot of, he's got the juice, as they would say. I don't know what to make of it. We'll see what happens with Christian Wilkins league wide and about where, he ends up finding potentially a landing spot. I did see John a couple of cut-ups of him doing the, he was like, he grabbed like Josh Allen's junk in the pile on one of the clips I saw, and he was humping another dude in one. So he's just kind of got the, two pumps for dominance kind of approach thing going on with him, I guess. But It's weird. I still wouldn't mind going after him. All we got to do, John, is we got to just put the Hannibal Lecter mask on his face, and we'll be fine. Nick says Patriots did offer us their second round pick for DK, but DK wouldn't sign with them, so it fell through. Boy, DK with Drake May would have been way better than in my opinion, with the Steelers. That's interesting. Robbie Reds is Madden with the dirty 65 overall rating for Milrow. They probably don't give third round picks very high grades in general, I would say. I'd estimate that's probably their just standard operating procedure for any QB taken third round onward ish. But the good news with Madden is they keep those settings updated constantly. So if he goes out there and does something, they'll give him some bump, you know. Jordan, isn't Wilkins more of a three tech? He can do both. He's played a lot of three tech. He's a little bit kind of like Leo is a little bit, where it's a guy that's done a lot of work from three tech, but that a guy who's also been able to be suited into nose tackle and handle those duties in there too. As much because of just how big he is and how good he is size wise in there to do it, you know, or he's a legit guy that runs out there at 320, 325 on game day. And so just he has the size to do it in there. But you're all right. There is some three tech stuff to what he's done on the back side of it. It's going to be pretty cheap though, Jordan. That's the other part of this. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. I think there's going to be some offset language there with Wilkins, like there was with the Russell Wilson deal when he got cut, being that the team that picked him up could basically do so on a veteran minimum because whatever extra he got paid would be just less the Broncos would have to pay him. Catalyst, I'll be honest, I didn't really like the Arroyo pick at first, but it's definitely growing on me. I'm the same way. Same way. King says, I have a question. If the Seahawks were to be moved out of Seattle, who would you root for and why, if anyone? I found my heart broken pretty hard when the Sonics were taken out of Seattle. And I love basketball. I still play basketball all the time to stay in shape. But I have a really hard time getting back to the NBA. And I think that if they came and they took, especially the fact we've already had the Sonics stolen from us, if they came and they did that, I would be in a position probably of just being like, well, the hell with you then. I don't need to watch your sport. So I don't think I could watch another team. I think it would definitely be tough for me to come back to the NFL if they did a move like that. Catalyst, I think Bo Nix has reached his ceiling, but he can certainly be the guy for the Peyton's offense. Oh, yeah. It's just a great pairing between Peyton and Nix. And I do think he's hit his ceiling, but the pairing is so nice between those guys that there's still a lot of potential of what they can get with that already hit your ceiling kind of situation. It's not necessarily a derogatory statement on Nix because it's pretty good. It's pretty good ceiling. Dogzilla, what would it take to get Mahomes? Oh, he's a lifetime Patriot. They're not letting him go. He's the straw that stirs the drink. Catalyst says, I really like the Titans draft, though. I love the Kevin Winston Jr. pick. They'll use him a lot like a hybrid safety role. He had the most upside of any safety in the draft. To your point, Catalyst, it was the injury that held him back out there at Penn State for why he did drop. And I love that pick for them as well. I think the rest of the draft was pretty solid. I mean, and I know they have to kind of go with Ward there. I just think you're getting a bit of the cart before the horse here because you're not really making sure you're taking care of the offensive line first and foremost. You made the same mistake with Will Levis. You got Levis in a position of, I don't know if that's what got him injured, but possibly could have. And maybe now you're going down and going to make the same mistake here, especially the guy in Ward that's going to have a tendency to lean into some of that improvisational stuff and put himself in that much more harm's way at times. So I didn't like that part, but there's some other stuff they did was good. Your mom are very colored. He's got the juices, they would say. Nick says if Pete wouldn't put up with your personality, I don't know what to say. Riverside, I could see Lockett potentially with 1,000 yards this year. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot there. His off-script stuff is fantastic, and like I just said a second ago too, Cam Ward's going to work off of improvisation, off-script stuff. So it's kind of like the Lockett move's kind of a low-key smart signing to bring him in because of how that'll work well between those two guys. I could see it. I was going to add the chastity belt too, Misfit. I was going to say that too. You might have to throw the chastity belt on top just to keep him, he's his own worst enemy, so to speak. Like Wilkins runs the rainbow back. Potentially so. Jalen Speed's in the 90s, though, Howard? Well, they got that right, at least. That's cool that they must have his awareness and accuracy down in the toilet. Hey, they'll update it. If he does it right, they'll update it. They ain't going to keep him in the same place. Besides, says Wilkins will touch a gooch. I've seen him twist Josh Allen's junk in a pile. And it was right then. Josh Allen freaked, as I would too, man. You want to watch me suddenly learn how to fly. Like, grab and twist. Oh! Nick says the Arroyo pick makes so much more sense now that Fount isn't on the roster. Yep. You were going to find that he's essentially going to serve as that replacement. Kind of thought it and knew it at the time, and it's played out to be that way. Brian Meyer says Wilson kissing thing was very unreliable report. Release fully based on rehab issues. Interesting. Bron Saw says, did you see the Superman and or Fantastic Four yet? No, but I'll catch them on video. I got to admit on both of them, I'm not super excited as both DC and Marvel's recent history has not been particularly good. They want to get a lot of movies out, but they don't seem to always be about getting a lot of quality movies out. But I will check them out. I do plan on it. Megan says if the Hawks are taken from Seattle after the Sonics, I will never watch again. I will never watch the NBA since it happened and never will. Yeah, I think I'd be in the same place. I don't know if I could just let that one go. I agree, Bron Sausage. Taking teams away from fan bases shouldn't happen. Especially understanding that a lot of times it's really not the fan bases that have messed things up and that it's some owner that's broke and doesn't have enough money and I need to go somewhere because I don't have enough money. And, these owners want to put on these taxpayers and everything too, that they got to pay for all their stadiums. And if you don't pay for our stadiums, we're going to hold you over the barrel. And it's almost like mob mentality, like the way that they go about this type of stuff. And it really is a bad look for any sport when you go down this direction of things. And I think it's silly you take these teams away from the fans as if they've done something wrong in the process. Owners seem to never be on the hook for ever making any mistakes here. It's always got to be like the fans or the local populace somehow. And it's ridiculous. Misfit says someone complained to HR about multiple Wilkins behavior incidents, according to Mike Florio. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Herbicide says Charles Haley, Cowboys defensive end back in the 90s, used to openly spank it during team meetings and try to make eye contact. A kiss to that ain't that bad. Yeah, Charles Haley was a little bit buck wild. He was definitely one of the original buck wild. Just I'm gonna do whatever I'm thinking here. Hell of a player, gun for hire kind of guy too. Where like wherever he went, like he made those defenses better. But yeah, I think I remember that story too. Different era, different age. King Bombers is technically speaking the next closest team to the state of Washington are the 49ers. I couldn't do it. Yeah, Haley was a wild one, Misfit. He was wild with it. There are some stories with him out there that just... Rodney Press Show. Good to see you, Rodney. Thank you for the $2 donation. He says, I don't know if I like this. I think there's some fans out there that I've even seen in the chat that are a little bit hesitant with this one, Rodney. I don't think you're going to see 100% everybody standing up and clapping and full applause. So I understand. There's some things you can go through detail by detail on John. You haven't gotten like one playoff win since 2017. There's not been any real recent success here, and you've won more games than you lost over the past couple of years, which is a good thing. But again, it's about trying to drive to the ultimate successful point. You haven't gotten there. I think that there's some reason to have a little bit of hesitancy on the outlook of this deal for sure. Bronze is just disrespectful to fans in the city that they take the teams away from. Rubs me the wrong way. Me too. It's silliness. It's not on fans ever with this. It's quite honestly, owners should be in their own right building these stadiums, not expecting taxpayers to funnel the bill, or do a lot more of what like Paul Allen did, where okay, I'm going to come out of pocket, meet you halfway on this one. I think that there should be more of that. But what you do get these owners like build my stadium and make it the most expensive thing ever on anything. No, okay, I'm going to L.A. Wait, what? No. Nick says, all jokes aside, I don't really think Wilkins is a personality or character fit for our locker room. Not a guy I envision McDonald would like to have around. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not on this one. You got everything so aligned in that locker room right now with these guys. Everybody buying in, everybody at OTAs, people going the extra mile. Bringing these kind of types in, I maybe a step in the wrong direction. Still waiting for the Will Hernandez report. Hernandez is supposedly healthy at this point. Yeah, Catalyst. So might be signing somewhat soon. Kind of see the Cardinals trying to bring him back in there. They've still got some money they can spend, and if they like his health status, that may be the move that they make there. Jordan says F4 and Superman were the opposite of how I felt about them during the trailers. F4 was pretty good, and Superman was not great. F4 felt like Marvel during phases 1 through 3, while Superman felt like Marvel during phases 4 through 5. And Marvel had a run, man. They did. I like those movies in the early phases. I can't wait. I'm gonna check out F4. It's got a lot of great. That's another one that'll definitely be on my list. Jarl says a lot of the hate for Fantastic Four is pretty much just Pedro Pascal's in it. He's everything now. Wah wah wah. Yeah, I've heard some people actually got some. There's been some good reviews on Fantastic Four as well, so it hasn't been all bad with it. And definitely there's a little bit of wear out on the Pedro factor. I think I saw a video the other day where somebody was like going to the movie and like, what do I want to go see? And they're going through the 3 posters outside the movie theater and they're like, Pedro Pascal movie or a Pedro Pascal movie or a Pedro Pascal movie. Which do I go for? But I've heard that the reviews are all right on that one. Galactus looks cool. Nick says, I love Superman. Characters were well done and comic accurate. Cool. I look forward to checking it out. Again, I've heard kind of back and forth on that one a little bit too as well. Bronze Dodgers at Ford felt good, felt like it mattered in the grand scheme. I also liked Superman, but I felt like the Gunn type of structure. I've been a little worried if Gunn was going to be the right fit for the Superman franchise because he definitely has his kind of James Gunn way with it. Maybe not always. What's up, Slobby Wan? It's good to see you. Feeling good. Seems like the stream's rolling pretty good here too. John says, I like John. He's not going to run the franchise into the ground or let it be taken into a wayward fashion by a faulty ownership group. He just needs to evolve a bit. Well said, John. Very well said. And I agree. Don't have anything to add. Just I agree, man. Bronze, it's so weird to think of the Sonics ever coming back. Like the Thunder used the Sonics history. So if the Sonics ever return, whose history is whose? Laughing out loud. Just another part of the ridiculousness that they took the history with them as well. Like, why would you do that? Like you get all of our history now to you. And Sean, Kevin, Payton acknowledged this by not doing their retirement stuff there. And like, no. But it's just this is the audacity of that Clay Bennett owner and what he did and how much you can see how he just did not give an F. And so it's like, look, NBA, if you don't give an F, then I don't give an F. And when it comes to the NBA expanding, NBA is dying right now. They're not going to expand out to Seattle. The only way they're coming out to Seattle is one of their dying franchises and one of their dying in one of the cities there. There's like, well, let's just try and move them somewhere else. But ratings have been going in the toilet in the NBA for years. Really by how the sport's been run and how it's just, yeah. Brian says, oh, Clay Bennett signed a contract that if Sonic's return, so does their history. Okay, that's good. I don't understand what's the point of taking the history in the first place then? Just leave it as it is. Well, we want to kind of artificially pump up our program in the small Oklahoma City market. And, if we have the banners and stuff, then it kind of like artificially. Shut up. Shut up, Clay. Shut up. The hell with you on that. No. Can't believe the NBA signed off on that. King Bomber says reports are Olu has been all right in camp. Just right guard is the issue. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they just got on pads like 2 days ago. I think it's a little early to kind of tell on that stuff. I'll be a little more, if we're a week and a half down the line on this and we're still kind of hearing some of that, then I'll be a little more concerned. Bronze has felt like Marvel wasted a lot of time after Endgame. Galactus deserves his own two-part film. Feels like they have to rush the Doom Secret War stuff. It does feel a little rushed to me too right now, where they're scrambling to try to get to that because they got the nostalgia bait that they can kind of click in with the Doom Secret War stuff, you know, and they get back in that sandbox. You go to the multi-use stuff, multiverse. It's almost kind of like a dead end because like everything now doesn't really matter because you can just be like, we'll just go to another universe and it's all good over there. There's no more weight to anything. Megan says Hawks Nest, 57 days to go before the trip. Busted knee comes out of the brace 4 days before. I'm watching all the movies while I'm on my feet, off my feet. Oh, you're almost there. We'll get better out there. And make sure you do all your rehab. You're just about there. Gonna be a good time, Megan. Yeah, Paul and definitely the GOAT. I get to ride in DeLorean. Hell yeah. I'd love to ride in DeLorean. Yeah, this is his Fantastic Four. It was really good in my opinion. Marvel finally delivered a win. I love the aesthetic of it. Just something that jumps out to me is I just love that it's got a little bit more of a cultivated look that separates. As a lot of these Marvels and DC, like they start to all look like each other. Like it's almost the same cinematographers filming the movie. You want a little bit of unique filmmaker stuff coming into bear there. I love the aesthetic though. It's awesome. You're also, I thought Thunderbolts was entertaining as well. Cap 4 was mid, and I don't mind Anthony Mackie as Cap, just thought the script was mid. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the whole him as Cap thing. Like, Cap's this thing that you pass down on through. I know they've done a little bit in the comics. I don't know if it's been successful in them doing that in the comics. Um, I think that's kind of partly of where they went with it, you know. But they can get back up on their feet with this. They just got to kind of reroute it back around a bit. It lost their way, I feel like, after Endgame. Maybe it's coming back, though. Addison, I'm going to Seattle from California in September for the Seahawks first Saints game. First Seahawks home game for me. Very excited. Let's go, Addison. It's going to be a little cold. No, wait. You're going September. It's going to be warm. It's going to be nice in the stadium. Let's go. It's a great time of year to go see them at that time. Perfect time of year. Have a good one there. Clippers to Seattle? I don't know. We wondered that with Ballmer's being there, but I think that they're pretty locked in down there in LA. Jordan said, I would just wish he was the overseer of the DCU, not the main writer. But hey, people enjoy it. That's all that matters. Yeah, to me, this is a little bit of like the Star Wars issue thing that goes on, where you see them pumping movies out that you're like, you guys can't do any better than this, and that there's a lot of really, in my opinion, probably very talented writers. I just think that they end up putting a lot of constraints on these writers and not letting them kind of go crazy like they could with the subject matter, and so you start to really limit down the type of stories that you really can tell, and it's like Star Wars and Disney taking Star Wars and then doing away with all of the expanded universe stuff that had existed for like 25 years of basically fiction had been written, that all these rich stories you could have pulled upon and called upon. And comics are the same way. They will sometimes not go after stories that are readily there and do them right, you don't have to rethink of anything. It's right there from, this many years ago, and they just won't do it. You got to reinvent the wheel. Addison says, as a Clipper fan, I'd be so down for them to move out of LA and give Seattle an NBA team again. Doesn't feel like the Clippers got a strong fan base in LA, and LA has already to those two teams, but everybody feels like a Laker fan in LA. I don't think I've ever met an LA person that's been like, yeah, I'm a Clip. Slubby One, do you see John actually sticking around for his full contract? Yeah, but he's probably about at the point of retiring when he's done with it at that point. I'd estimate that he's probably getting around to the spot, unless he still just loves it so much and wants to keep going. But I mean, hell, that's going to put him 2031, puts him in probably his early 60s. So, he's probably getting to that spot where it's getting close, you know. But would I be predicting he sticks around? I mean, general managers don't tend to last as long as he's already lasted. So, just by the general nature of the way this beast runs, no, you're not going to get there. But if there's anybody that could, it's John. If he's got the conditions set up to be able to pull this off with them just on the precipice. So he'll be one of cracking through and becoming a team that can, get back to being one of those potential elite teams in the NFL. Yeah, Gunn as a side character stuff's better, Bronze. You got to kind of keep him away from the main guys because he's better with kind of offshoot characters that are colorful and kind of outcast types. You don't want it's where he needs to kind of be staying. They don't finish the scripts either out there at the MCU, Jordan. They just start filming. It's like that's their kind of modus operandi. Give me come back to you. You don't have to do it this way. There's a lot of smart writers that can put together great scripts. The problem is that you just get people in there with opinions that aren't creatives, aren't storytellers. They've got other things that are kind of driving it. Carroll says, I'll bet money week one, starting OL, barring a trade, will be Cross, Zabel, Oluwatimi, Bradford, Lucas. I'd go with that too. Jo, I saw DeLorean yesterday in Covington. It was clean. Ooh. They're still driving around, huh? Bronze, yeah, Marvel's rushing it. And we saw with the DCU when they did this thing with the Superman Batman thing, it didn't work out well for them either on it. Not that those were completely bad movies, just that you were rushing it. You weren't letting it cultivate. And that's the thing about Marvel is that you slowly cultivated an end game. You didn't just like one movie and let's jump to the thing. It's like you were letting it like this expansive story kind of all kind of open up. Ron said, I say the comedy was nice because every superhero has felt so real and heavy on the dark tone for a bit. They have been, yeah. It has gotten a little dark. Hyper realism, nor. You're going to Rams Vikings game, Slobby One? There'll be some good games to go to. Misfits says Clay Bennett can eat a bag of schlongs. Yes, he can. Slowly. And James still might pull it off, Bronze. We'll see. I don't want gun touching Batman either, Jordan. Batman is one you do have to take seriously. The goofy elements don't work well with Batman. I know there's some goofy cadre of supervillains he may have, but it doesn't work as well when it gets into the goofy territory with Batman. Grandizer Brando, hope all is well. Don't like this signing at all. Schneider gets an extension, yet Brandon Kane does more work than him and can't get an offer in the front office. Put some respect on B. Kane. I know. I've been waiting here, biding my time, being like, John's just got a couple of years left, and I'm in there. I'm in there. And then Jodi snaked me. She snaked me. Yeah, I liked Ragnarok too. Love and Thunder that was awful. I felt like Taika just took a check on that one. Said, okay, I'll do it if you make me, but I'm not doing it well. Nick, what I enjoyed about Superman was it felt like I was watching a Superman movie. I know people like Schneider, but to me, there hasn't been a good Superman portrayal since Reeves, and that was decades ago. Reeves is definitely the GOAT, man. He captured the character in just such a very right, specific way that's hard for anybody that's come after him to upend it. But that's good to hear. Get me stoked to go check it out. Bronze, we're going to see what happens if DC bombs. Gunn will probably change his whole vision after that and can't help themselves when it comes to creative control. Yeah, I don't know if they'll get a second run at it if it doesn't work right here this first time, but sounds like they've got enough kind of sparks off of the Superman movie to keep this thing going in, and we'll see how the Supergirl movie comes up next. If they can, roll. And Grandizer, I like definitely go to the start of the show because I can do some pretty expansive thoughts on the deal. But from my standpoint, I like the signing, and I think that there's a lot of things John's done that has been smart and good in recent history, from the Russell Wilson trade, putting the cart behind Geno Smith and trusting in him, bringing in a Mike Macdonald as head coach, and the process that brought them to Mike Macdonald, which was an extensive, long one and a right one. I think that he's gotten the big decisions right here in recent years, and he's moving this thing in the right direction. And so my standpoint on it in the short form is that I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm in favor of it. Megan says, Hawksnest found out Bob Gale writes in comic book and video games. Ooh, nice. A man of many talents. Jordan's the only hope I have for Doomsday is that the Russo brothers have not missed with Marvel. That's true. Russo brothers really know how to direct a Marvel movie. Like Winter Soldier is awesome. So they do give me a little bit of faith too on that. I like the work they've done. They make very watchable, fun movies usually, at the very least. Bronze has felt like every movie mattered, whereas now it's just random junk. No one's going to remember She-Hulk in 10 years like we do other phases 1 through 3 characters. Yeah, the issue is too is you bring in certain different writers that just want to do their own thing and they're not worried about continuity. So you set rules here that this is this, and then you come in here and you just throw all those rules away and reapply them into a new movie, and then you throw all those rules away and here's another show and we're going to reapply them here, and it's like, well, we don't have any. I don't understand what's going on. You just kind of, you guys are literally making everything up as you go along, and there isn't any continuity to understanding it. Jordan says Christian Bale was wasted in Love and Thunder. His 10 minutes were amazing. Oh, he was awesome. Christian always brings it, and he was just fantastic in the movie. It was just so stupid and silly and too many jokes and just over the just ugh. Herbicide, Hawksnest, can you give us a rundown of all the collab shows you have coming up? I don't have a lot necessarily on deck. We're going to be getting some more stuff here as we kind of get closer into the season, and we got everybody kind of all hands on deck as far as all the watchers now. Football's going, they're checking it out. So we'll be getting, I'll be reaching out to guys like Stan and company, and we'll get Dan in here and all that. But we're going to be doing the collab crossover event on Saturday. It's not going to be broadcast from my channel. It's going to go to I think Dan Vienne's channel. But we're going to be out there. Right out there at the Fast Fashion Brewery is where we're going to be at. And so if you guys want to join us out there, that's where we're going to be doing a 2 o'clock Saturday, just down the road. Let me get this and show you guys the little thing here if I can find it, which it's not going to show up. Nope, there it is.
Yes.
Oh,
No.
Nope. It's not it. Where'd it go? Where did it go? There it is. There we go. So we got the crossover event right here. 2 to 4. Just down the road there at Fast Fashion Brewery from Lumen Field and CenturyLink. Mariner game going on that day. But really looking forward to chopping it up with the fellas out there and having a good time. It's going to be fun. I'm going to go down to Seattle a little early on Saturday, get down there, have some breakfast at some place, just kind of walk the city and just kind of take it back in a little bit. It's been a while, and just kind of just breathe it all in on a beautiful summer morning, hopefully. Yarl says, what worried me is James Gunn has come out and said he doesn't really understand Batman. Yeah, that's not good. Not a good sign. It's a tough character to sometimes nail. Even the last Batman movie showed that. It wasn't a bad movie, but I don't know if they nailed it. Outdoor for Life, JSN's cooking with Darnold this year. You better believe it. Better believe it. Grandize right on, Brandon. I'll always defer to your judgment. You never lead us astray. How wouldn't you hear? And certainly I'm not saying John's perfect on this Grandizer and that there is valid criticism to hurl in his direction. Saying you should have did this and you didn't, or you did that and you did this. But I think the big picture items are where he's really gotten it right. And I think that he's earned this extension with those decisions he's made in recent years because they are major wins. The Russell Wilson is a major win. Uh, Backing a Geno Smith when you didn't have a lot of options at quarterback and nobody else thought Geno could do what he did, and Geno did what he did. Hiring of Mike McDonald, changing the draft approach towards value over need in recent years. These are all items that I think you got to give him a lot of credit for. Broncos Watch, you have a good one, man. If you ever want to get rid of Jake Bobo, JSN, Tariq Woolen, and AJ Barner, give us a call. Well, Bobo, you never know, man. It's going to be a hard match, or I don't know if they're going to keep him on that one, but the rest of them we're keeping. You can't have them. They're ours. Keep your hands off. But thank you, Broncos, for checking out the channel today and hanging out. Appreciate you. Jordan, Man of Steel 2 would have been the Superman everyone was looking for. They just needed to let the story play out. I could have seen that. I didn't mind I didn't mind necessarily as much as some other people did the Man of Steel movies and all of that with Jack Snyder. I mean, he's got his own kind of stuff that can be issues and problematic, but I didn't mind him. I would have been okay with seeing where it would have gone, Jordan. You do got to let that stuff sometimes grow a little bit. And yeah, you're all they wasted Ben Affleck too. Like Ben was a pretty good Batman to me. Like he kind of fit pretty well with it. It's tough. That's another tough one. Just it's hard to cast right. But I mean, so the problems I had with the Batman movies, I thought the Batman movie's pretty good, but I just couldn't buy into I call him Robert Pattinson. I just can't. That guy's not kicking anybody's ass. You know what I mean? He ain't. No. I don't think he could beat a warm, wet towel. So everyone, can we come to meet you? Yeah, please do come out at the event. Anybody else is that we're going to be at the brewery. So if you want to come out, and it's just down the road there from Lumen Field, and if you're going to the scrimmage afterwards, because the scrimmage is going to be at 4 or 5, I forget which it is, on Saturday. So we're going to be going down to the scrimmage as soon as we're wrapping up there. But I'm going to be down there at the bar. Probably go there after the scrimmage is over with too as well. So if you guys are looking for a place to hang out, come down there, say what's up. I'd love to meet some folks for sure. That'd be awesome. Yeah, shafted Henry in the process. I like Cavill. The Calvarine. Ron's Black Adam had a cool moments, need an R rating. Terrible one down with DC. Yeah, it was all haphazard and they were just running to try to catch up to Marvel rather than just don't be so ingrained with trying to catch up to Marvel. Just do this right and do it properly and do it correct. Nitro says currently wearing the same shirt. Great minds think alike. Let's go. I love this shirt, man. You can't wear it out in the sun or you're going to be sweating. But it's a good inside shirt, that's for sure. River skips that are out there for Schneider's vision, and I don't mean to offend anyone who liked the movies, but to me it was dreadful. He never picked up a comic in his life, and it showed. Yeah, he wasn't perfect. I liked some of the visual style of what he does, but you obviously have to pay the price with Zach when it comes to the storytelling elements. There you go. You're gonna have some moments with him on that where you're like rolling your eyes, going, "Come on." He could just film some stuff that looked so, freaking cool. Hawksnest, the last time you were in Seattle was when I was there, wasn't it, Pete? No, I came here last year too, Megan. We did training camp last year. But then before that it was. Brandon, I want my MTV Dire Straits. I want my Brandon Kane TV, the 12s. Let's go. I want my... Yeah, Kevin Conroy, rest in peace. Joe, it would have been weird not to bring JS back. We're right in the middle of building a team. Yeah, it just makes sense. The time is if you're going to move on from John, as I said at the top of the show on this one, JL, the time to do it was when you're going to move on from Carroll. And if you're re-upping them with John at that point, you're re-upping, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Hawks Nest, any surprises for players not making the team? Do you have a 53 roster prediction? I haven't put one together quite yet, but I'll try to maybe work on that in the background of things, Herbicide. I don't have any shocking ones other than you're going to probably keep one less wide receiver than you kept last year. But I don't have any real major surprises that stand out to me of a guy that's going to make the roster that we didn't think was going to make the roster. I think it's all pretty straightforward as to who's going to make it and who isn't. And it doesn't sound like anybody in camps really, as of yet, for those guys that have a long pathway to make the roster, have really risen up and done anything either. So... Nick says Snyder was also going to have Batman lose to Deathstroke and then proceed to have Batgirl save the day. Ugh. Well, maybe it was better that he didn't do it then. Maybe for the best. And Chris, I would have loved to see Nick Cage as Superman. That would have been just weird enough that it might have worked. It would have been wild, but it might have just worked. I like Keaton as Batman too. We turn this into a thread about Marvel and DC. It goes that way in the Hawks Nest streams. Bronze sausage. So that's how it goes here sometimes. We go wherever the currents take us. You're also definitely the best Bruce Wayne, but not the best Batman when it comes to. I think you were talking about Bale. Watchmen was good. Yeah, he did a great job with Watchmen. And that was a script that for years people said was unfilmable, just because it was so dense and just hard to make. But a lot of those elements of Watchmen carried forward into even Marvel stuff into the future on that. You certainly can feel some of it too with like The Boys and, some of the effect that that's had on that. Jordan's I'm not a fan of everything Zach, but I love BBS, MOS, JLSC, and outside that, I really only enjoyed Watchmen. I think I'm in the same camp as you on that, Jordan. I don't like a lot of what he's done, but are certain things when he does do it right that I like quite a bit. I mean, I like 300. 300 was great. Watchmen and 300 are my two with him that are the ones that really stand out. But there's a lot of clunkers. That one they did on Netflix a couple of years ago, that two-parter. Like make me throw up on that one. Like, miss. I didn't like the zombie movie. I hated that, Jordan. I hated everything about the zombie movie. The zombie one and then the outer space one where he literally has spaceships running on coal power. No. Christian Bale's great. Outdoors for life. Yeah, I think he's probably a top 5 actor and a true chameleon where so many actors are just kind of playing an offshoot of themselves. I love me some Nick Cage movie where he plays himself was hilarious. That was pretty funny. Jordan says the Joker was supposed to be the main villain and they turned a dancing witch into the villain. Y'all got culture in here. We got culture. Yeah, I want Nick Cage back as Ghost Rider. I think they should do it for Doomsday. They're bringing everybody else back. Why not? Throw them into the mix. Put another shrimp on the Barbie. Nick, I always thought the guy who played Harvey in Suits would have been a perfect Bruce Wayne. And fun fact, he was going to audition for the role, but was filming Suits, so he couldn't. Ben ended up getting it. Might have been interesting. Wasn't necessarily the physical side of it, because that's the part that's the hard part, is that you can be the Bruce Wayne, but maybe you can't be the Batman physical side of it, or one to the other. And like people want to do Richmond a little bit, the guy from the Reacher Amazon series. Some people are for him, but it's like he's not gonna be able to pull off Bruce Wayne, and maybe he pulls off Batman, but it's hard. It's tough. It's a tough part to cast. You got to play two roles. Braun said they took a 4-hour Justice League and demanded to be cut in half. Ended up with 1 hour and 50 minutes. Laughing out loud. What? Studio executives, man, they've been butchering movies and messing things up for 5 decades in Hollywood. They just can't help themselves. Somehow they think, I got this power in this position. I don't have a creative mind, but I'm just so powerful. I'll make it happen. I'll make it happen. 501st rejected thoughts on RDJ's version of Doom that stole Tony's body. Hot take. I don't like it. This is essentially what they're doing, is going back and what Marvel's been trying to do now the past couple of years, understanding that they seem to have lost their touch with making these original stories, is it all just becomes nostalgia bait. Do you remember berries? Don't you remember when this thing did this? Wasn't that cool? Don't you remember that thing that was in that good movie that you liked back in the day? Isn't that cool? We'll bring some of that back. And I think with this one, that's what they're doing. And they're going to try to do Captain America as the Hydra Captain America, and it's essentially just sort of like they're just throwing everything that they've had in the past back up at the wall and hoping it will stick. That's not visionary. That's not super creative. I don't know if that's a pathway to success. They might be able to pull it off, but I think that no. Doctor Doom should just be his own character, and you're having to shoehorn in Downey because you don't trust your ability to just bring in an actor to fill the role and then be able to have that role, him take it over and own it like Robert Downey owned Iron Man. So I think it's seriously stupid, in my opinion. But maybe they pull it off. Jordan says, I don't think you have to be a great Bruce Wayne as long as Batman is good. I mean, IMO Bale was a great Bruce Wayne, but his Batman felt off. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's that part I say. You got to have the physicality and the size to it to be able to go both ways with it there, and that you're feeling that when you are into the Batman side of it, that the guy feels like a bruiser a bit, and it's hard. It's hard to get that both a playboy to a bruiser are two different kind of things. BTTF was rejected 40 times before Spielberg took it to Universal and got it made. Now consider one of the greatest sci-fi movies with Blade Runner in 2001. Yeah, the executives just can't help themselves with messing stuff up. And you'd think they would eventually have some self-wherewithal of realizing, like, hey, us trying to impart our stuff into creatives is not helping things. Like, it's never for the better. This is only going to take me down the road to get fired. Bronze says Harvey from Suits' Two-Face, fire. That would work. I could see that. Thanos will be back. Should be for Secret Wars. I bet he is. They're going to bring everybody back, Bronze. I guarantee you that everybody's coming back. That anybody and everybody that they can throw into this thing, they're going to throw into it. Remember him? Remember this guy? Remember how cool this dude was? And that's not storytelling, right? That's just spectacle. Maybe it works. Bronze, first Avatar stuck. Second one was really nice. I just didn't like the first one enough to be all that interested in the second one or the third one or the fourth one or the fifth one that they're going to make in 6 years. I need story matters to me. I'm a former writer. I love story. Like I need story to be a driving force instead of it being about, vision. And I know it's a visual medium, but don't forget the story too. Dances with Wolves for Space. Jordan, I haven't seen the second one in the camp. I have nothing else to watch. Yeah, I'm not watching it either. Other Marvel movies are just as bad as Fast and Furious. Just stop already. I liked the last few, but then it got weird. Yeah. Yeah, I think if anything, what Marvel really should be doing is rather than this whole Doomsday, Secret War, Remember Barry, nostalgia stuff, just take it back to square one. Sometimes things just get too complicated and too far down the line. Tear it all down, start back up again. Recast the actors, redo the stories. You love remaking stuff. Go that route. Brian says might be a little late at this point, but wouldn't Robert Downey Jr. have made a good Wayne Batman? I don't think he would have been the physical side to that. I mean, that suit in Iron Man gives him the physicality in that. I don't know if it would have looked the same. Guy's like 5'10". I think he would look pretty smallish as a Batman. Certainly the Bruce Wayne thing he'd pull off. He showed that with Tony Stark. But I saw that movie the first time around when it was called Dance with Wolves. Yeah, which is a much better movie, which is put together by a storyteller who cares about what he's doing and understands it's not about my spectacle and my visuals, but it's about telling a story that can resonate with people, which almost soulfully, which is what Dances with Wolves did. Yeah, there's X-Men are gonna get the movie after Doomsday. I think that this is gonna be a scramble. I think we'll see. They're putting all their eggs into this basket, so maybe they can pull it off. Roman Reigns, he'd be a good Vandal Savage. I don't know Vandal Savage. They're going to be soft rebooting after Secret Wars, new Cap, Iron Man. That's good. That's the direction I think you should go at that point. Young cast for X-Men, recast a Wolverine, just do away with the nostalgia side and start from the square one. That can be a freeing thing in itself. Now it's just is about the story and getting that right. Jordan, if the new Super Spider-Man gets ruined by Sony's stupid ideas, I'm going to be pissed. It's as bad as it ever was, and you'd think more than ever before that they'd be stepping back in this way and realizing the error in their ways in doing it, but they just don't. They won't, and I don't think that they're stopping anytime soon. I think you get a lot of cooks in the kitchen here too. You get a lot of people with a lot of different voices, and none of them are creative, and none of them are really visionary, and none of them are imaginative. It's like, well, our polls would seem to indicate that people like this. The general public tends to, approve of these kind of stories and whatnot that they resonate more with. Who cares? I do love James Cameron Bronze. It's just the Avatar thing, I think, is a little bit of a waste of his talents. I mean, he's done some really great movies, but this is a little bit of, for me, of a little. Hmm. I never saw the animated version of Avatar for Gully. I do love Cameron though. True Lies, obviously Terminator 1, Terminator 2. I love The Abyss. The Abyss is a hell of a movie. Still holds up. I guess that's why I love Bob Gale. Never make Back to the Future, as he knows what it took for the trilogy, knows when to leave enough alone. Yeah, don't have to redo every movie. Not everything's you. Some movies can hold up from a timeless fashion. Go watch The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Does that thing need to be redone? Can you go sit down and watch it for 3 hours and be like, wow, hell of a film still? I'm not a big fan of the new superhero movies, but the old ones hold a ton of esoteric knowledge. The new ones do too, but the movies aren't as good. True. True. It's where you can bury some depth in some of this that's all sort of surface storytelling, comic book movies. There's actually a lot of room to build a story of depth within it, characters of depth within it. It doesn't just have to be, man swings punch, hits really hard. That can be a part of it, but there certainly can be a deeper levels to it too. Outdoor for Life, I guess the new Superman was too political. I hadn't seen it, but if I had, that sucks. I was looking forward to it. I haven't had a chance to check it out either, Outdoors for Life. But I hear a bit of mixed reviews. Some people really like it, some are a little bit less, but it seems to be a bit mixed. Yeah, The Abyss was awesome. It's just a great and a unique movie. A movie about being at the bottom of the ocean and dealing with aliens, and very cool. Michael Biehn in there as a unhinged Navy SEAL. Yeah, Abyss was fire. Love me some Abyss. Head now, Megan. Head now, B. Nice to know I've been missed. Missed you too. You're always missed around here, Megan, whenever you're not around. And I do think we will go ahead and put a button on that. We got a good hour and 45 minutes in today. So I appreciate the great discussion, though. I'm always willing to talk a little comic book talk or movie talk. That's all. We always open discussion here. We go wherever we got to go on this. Does seem like my system's holding up well here on the hotel Wi-Fi, which is good to hear. We're going to be coming back tomorrow after practice. I'll be giving you guys a little summation on practice from the berm. We might be doing a live stream tomorrow. If not tomorrow on the live stream, I'll be coming back to you guys on Friday for a live stream then. So one of the two there, I will keep you guys updated on that side of it. I am going out to training camp practice over the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. If you're out of practice and you're facing and down looking at the berm, just go to the left side of the berm, kind of the leftish side, kind of middle of the way up. You'll see me sitting there in my hawk shirt. Do come by and say what's up. Say hey if you get a chance. I'd love to meet a few people from the channel and be able to chop it up with you guys just a little bit. I was able to do that last year and it was a lot of fun. We've got as well on Saturday the remote event there that we're going to be doing out in Seattle, right down the road from Lumen Field. Ultimate crossover event. Bryce Coots. We got Mookie Alexander from Field Goals. We got Dan Bienz from Seahawks Forever. All going to be in the house here, all chopping it up, talking about our Seahawks just down the road from the stadium there. 2 o'clock, just before the scrimmage, the Seahawks internal scrimmage that goes on Saturday. So from 2 to 4, you can catch us out there at Fast Fashion Brewery. I'm really looking forward to that. Please do come out. I'd love to be able to, again, just meet some people out there this time. I don't get to Seattle much, so the times I do get to Seattle, I'd love to have a chance to be able to chop it up with you guys and meet some of my people and say what's up. So I thank you guys for that. If you could do me a favor today on your way out as we're wrapping up, if you could just maybe hit that like button. It's a small little thing, but it's a major thing that helps out this channel tremendously. So if you get a chance, hit that like button and maybe join up like John Weinmiller just did. Thank you, John, for becoming a member of the channel. I really appreciate you for doing that. That's really kind of you. If you aren't already joined up, please do subscribe as well and hit that like button, as we'd love to get over the top of 20,000 this year if we can do it. That's the goal, is to get up over 20,000 subscribers, and we're just past 19.4, so we're cooking along. We're going to get there, I think, this year, and hopefully clear that very, very easily. I thank you guys for watching today. It's great being back home. Just the scent of the trees in the air, the feeling of the air, the warm weather. No more beautiful place on Earth, on planet Earth, in Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, in the middle of the summer as it just shimmers. This is why it is called the Emerald City. So I'm going to love going out to practice tomorrow. Got the water out there. Got the team practicing. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys out there. I thank you for watching for today. Got a general manager on a contract extension. Things are moving in the right direction. This guy's going to be here until 2031. Things are going in the right manner, in the right way. And I hope you are excited for the future of this football team, because I think they are very close to doing some very great things. So if you are not already in, if you are not already tapped in, you better do so right now. Don't you ever forget. Don't you dare do it. Go Hawks.